250,000 miles. Let's go for a drive and talk about that. Welcome back and thanks for being here. My name is Scott and I didn't think that I was going to be shooting a new video quite so soon. It seemed like just a few months ago that I shared my lunar landing hoax. I'd reached this milestone of about, well, it was 238,000 miles, 238,855, something like that, average distance to the moon. And with the 250 mark being so close, relatively speaking, it didn't seem like I would create another video at that point. But here I am, because now I realize that 250,000 miles, that sounds pretty cool. It's is it a big deal? I don't know, but for the metric viewers of my channel, that'd be the other 50%, that's 400,000 kilometers. So is 400,000 kilometers a big deal to you? And if it is, then here we are. Let's talk about 400,000 kilometers. The milestone is not necessarily a huge deal. I mean, it is, but it's, I mean, I just had a video a couple of months ago. What I want to talk about though is some of the things that I've been doing since my last video. There's been some developments. In the last video, I mentioned, I believe, my oil migration challenge. I was getting what I believed to be a little bit of oil in my coolant, but we couldn't find any leaks. My mechanic wasn't quite sure if it was oil. He thought it might have been something else, like a cooling system component, maybe like rubber breaking down or something. And I was beginning to see more and more of these posts about the oil cooler gaskets failing and things like that. Now the Mk7 generation, the 7th generation of Golfs and GTIs, they're starting to get old enough to where we're seeing more of these things happening. It's not happening like cars dropping dead all over the place, but it is happening. And what we're seeing in these other cars is a lot of froth in the coolant reservoir. I might refer to that as a bottle from time to time, so keep that in mind, the bottle. They get really bad buildup in them, and those are probably from cars that have a catastrophic failure of that gasket. So then you've got a lot of oil in the coolant. It's very clear and obvious what's going on, but in my case it is just a small hole, slit, compression of the gasket, something minor. So I maybe am getting a few drops per day, and that was more evident when my coolant flush was new. I think I shared an image of that in the previous video as well, where I could tell that whatever's going on, it's still happening, it's just very, very slow. While I was continuing to troubleshoot whether or not I had an oil migration problem, a true leak, I was keeping my engine clean. Well, my engine's always clean, but I was keeping it cleaner than usual, or cleaning it more frequently, I should say. And I never saw, there was this one drip at the front of the engine, and when I say the front of the engine, it's the front of the car, which would be the left side of the engine because it's turned sideways, right? So anyway, at the front of the car, I was seeing this one drip beneath the accessory bracket, and a lot of you might be thinking, aha, the accessory bracket, there's a gasket in there that can leak. But it did not look like oil, because it wasn't brown like fresh oil or black like used oil, contaminated oil. It was gray, and it had a feeling of, say, mineral oil or sewing machine oil. Coincidentally, I had been watching my air conditioner. There's a lot of coincidentals going to be in this story here, so just hang on for the ride. I don't think I've ever reported this, but I had a small air conditioning problem I was first aware of in 2019, maybe a little bit sooner. And what would happen is, on a longer trip, my airflow would slow down and then eventually cease. But then it didn't take me long for me to discover that if I turn off the air conditioning, turn off that compressor, after about 10 minutes, the airflow would be restored. It would even blow cold for a little bit, and then it would get warm, and then I would turn the air conditioner back on, and it would work great for another 30 or 45 minutes, and then I'd have to do it again. So I theorized that my system was icing up. It was restricting airflow, and then I would turn off the air conditioning. It would thaw out. I'm imagining like a block of ice all around the evaporator, right? And then so the air would flow over this ice, and it was still blowing kind of cool out, and it wasn't awful. Anyway, I played that game for a year or so. I went to my mechanic to have him have a look at it. He extracted the refrigerant, weighed it, and said this is exactly where it needs to be, and he put it back in. And coincidentally, everything worked great for 2 years. So fast forward 2 years, and now I have the air conditioning isn't blowing cold enough. It cools a little bit, but on a 95-degree day, it's not cold enough. And so I suspected a leak, took it to him, asked him to recharge. He recharged, added UV dye, and 3 to 4 weeks later, I went back to have him look in it to see if he could see evidence of a leak, and there wasn't any. So at that point, we agreed that there was probably a leak at the evaporator. Replacing the evaporator is so time-consuming and expensive, not to mention the possibility of new dash rattles and stuff when you go to put it all back together, because it never goes back together perfectly. It's cheaper to just recharge the air conditioning every summer if I have to than it is to replace that evaporator. So that recharge lasted 2 years, which was up till about, I noticed this spring when I started running the air conditioner that it really should be colder than this, but it wasn't uncomfortable, right? So I just was like, let me wait until I really need it. On a 75-degree day, this car gets warm. It's like a fish bowl in here, I suppose. Maybe it's the black interior, something about it, but even at 70 degrees outside, it gets hot in here, and it's just the way the car is. It's always been this way. So I will run the air conditioner on a 72-degree day, and into the 80s, it starts to feel a little uncomfortable in here. So I went back to him to say, hey, I'm ready for a new charge, a new recharge. And by the way, and then I told him about this weird gray substance dripping from under the car, and asked him, does the compressor have its own oil supply? It's sealed in there. It never even dawned on me that, I mean, I'm not trained on AC&R, so I didn't even think about this, but I guess the refrigerant is also a lubricant. He didn't say that. This is what I'm thinking. I'm asking. So I said, hey, does this sealed unit have its own lubricant inside? Because maybe that's what this is, because it's not oil. He agreed. He's like, oh wow, if you've got a leak at the compressor, that's certainly going to give you your problems. And so I went ahead and scheduled compressor replacement. Now he was hesitant, you know, now we're going back to the oil migration. He was hesitant to replace gaskets, the oil cooler and the oil cooler gasket, without there being really good proof of there being an oil leak there. He just doesn't like doing work on cars that may not be necessary. He doesn't fleece his customers, and so I agreed with his caution there. But now you remove the alternator to get to the compressor, and once the alternator and compressor are out, well, the oil cooler and the accessory gaskets are just right there. You just remove a few bolts and you have it all out on the bench, and now you can replace all the gaskets. So I convinced him to do it. It didn't take a lot of effort. I just said, hey, now is a great time to replace these gaskets. So all at one time, new compressor, new refrigerant, replace the oil cooler, its gasket, replace the accessory bracket gasket. The car is whole. Is it really? Anyway, I have now an air conditioner that will freeze my face off. I have, pretty sure after looking at the condition of those gaskets, One of them did have a little slit in it, I think. Then, and the other gaskets or areas of the gasket showed enough compression to where I could see how they were probably leaking by some oil, but not enough for it to go to the ground or wind up anywhere else in the engine bay. That's why I couldn't find, neither of us could find an oil leak, but it was just kind of oozing slowly into the coolant system. So I'm very certain that that is now fixed. What else did I have going on? There was something else that I'm watching. Oh, I'm watching my alternator. I have, a lot of you might know that I've got this auxiliary battery behind me. It's 100 amp hour, 1280 watt hours, and I charge it with a 700 watt DC to DC charger. And it doesn't always charge 700 watts. I've been learning that when it's hotter outside, it pulls back. But is it the charger that pulls back? I think it's the alternator. I think the alternator pulls back. During the winter, I was seeing the thing charging at 49 amps, 48 amps, 42, say 37 to 42 is about average, because the charging current is never going to include whatever's being consumed by the electronics that I have going in the car, whether it's my ham radios or a refrigerator. So if I see 40, I think I'm having a good charging day. But now that it's hotter outside, that charge current has gone down a lot. In fact, it seems, it could be just my imagination, but it seems that every year that charging current goes down just a little bit. But also 2025 so far has been hotter than most of the days in 2024. And I think 2024 might have been a little bit warmer than 2023. I mean, sure, there were some spikes in there where we had hotter or cooler days, but the past 2 days it was above 95 degrees. It was 98, and my charger might only be pulling about 17 amps from the alternator, which is very unusual. So I am recharging that aux battery back there at a very low rate. Now today it is 81. Right now it's 81, and I'm charging at, looks to be about 27 amps, which is good. That's, I'm not displeased with that. Battery will charge up a little faster that way, but I ask myself still, is my alternator getting old? I have no fault indications. The car is happy with what's going on with the alternator, so it's not telling me that anything is wrong, but I am watching it. So maybe that will be next. We'll see. I think a common question that I get, especially now that I've got a geriatric GTI, I mean, it's not even 9 years old yet, so is it really that old? But it's got 250,000 miles. But once I put out that 200,000 mile video, I was getting the question, the most common question, have you replaced the timing chain yet? And the answer to that is no. My chain, tensioners, and the guides, they're all original. Again, my mechanic, he does not believe in doing work on cars until it's necessary. For example, he doesn't do the intake cleaning until you've got a cold start and misfire. Likewise with the gaskets, and he would say the same of my alternator. Hey, you don't have any faults, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to replace it when it's not known to be bad? But likewise with the timing chain, he showed me these measuring blocks that he looks at. You can look at them in either VCDS or OBD11, and you sharpshooters saying, it's OBD2, darn it. I know it's OBD2, Onboard Diagnostics version 2, but the app that I'm referring to is called OBD11. So OBD11 is where I monitored it, and he showed me this adaptation that you can look at. And what happens is, as the chain stretches, the tensioner will make up for that by extending a little bit, and there'll be some timing adjustments to help correct all of that. Once that timing correction reaches about 6 degrees, it's time to replace the chain and the tensioner, and hey, while you're in there, do the guides. My adjustment is only 1.1 degrees. I think that's on the exhaust side, and a hair over 0 degrees on the intake side of, you know, these cams. And so it's not time to replace the timing chain or the tensioner yet. I think once I see it get to about 5 degrees, then that's when I'll have the chain and tensioner replaced. And I don't know, I might get a little nervous and replace it earlier, preemptively, even if there's nothing wrong. And certainly if I get any oil leaking at the timing chain covers, well, there's labor involved with taking the covers off to reseal them. At that point, I might as well just replace the chains, in my view, on a car that's this old. Given all of the comments on my YouTube videos about how unreliable Volkswagens are, or they can be, including reports of premature failures on both stock and modified cars, I find myself wondering, what did I do to be so lucky with the majority of my Volkswagens, including this GTI? One of my YouTube commenters said that my results, my good luck, is an anomaly because only a small percentage of car owners follow the maintenance schedule to the letter. To which I could only just say, oh, what? He went on to say that Toyotas are far more forgiving to the average owner who doesn't take proper care of their cars, and I think I can agree with that. German cars do not tolerate slack maintenance practices at all. You will get punished. I was also described as a fastidious owner by another commenter, and I agree with that to about 95%, but I never thought that I'd fall into a small percentage of people who aren't too lazy or too cheap to take care of their cars, their need for transportation. I honestly thought that most cars are properly maintained, even if most is only qualified by as little as 51%. The whole thought of most cars on the road being neglected kind of makes the idea of buying a used car scary. Still, my mechanic says that he has maintained plenty of Volkswagens. He's been in business for, I think, 30 years or more. And there is no rhyme or reason to what kind of failures he sees, whether it's a stock car, modified car. I don't know. He just sees these problems. And are these problems on cars that are being brought in by the second owner? Maybe the first owner neglected them, wasn't using the right oil, or just not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I don't know. I remember this woman, when I was there getting my car for the air conditioning and the gaskets, there was a woman there picking up her Q5. It had needed a fuel pump. And I remember him saying to her, "We drive these cars because we love them." And I agree with that. I think that basic Corollas, Camrys, Altimas, Civics, and other icons of affordable reliability, they're good cars, great commuters, but they lack something. They lack this spark, this little bit of extra, this glimmer that gives you some pleasure in driving the car instead of it just being a chore or a simple necessity. And I think anybody who has purchased the performance variants of those cars, like the GR, the SI, the Type R, even the Type N from Hyundai, you know what I mean. You bought something that's a little bit extra, and you can tell, you feel the extra. You know what I mean by that little spark. If driving a car that inspires actual satisfaction or maybe some enthusiasm costs a little more, then I can accept that. I think everybody's got a line when it comes to cars and trucks. Some will draw their line at a BMW 8 Series, while others will draw it at a Nissan Versa. Some can afford to not even draw a line at all, and instead will have a car, a truck, a van, and so on and so forth. And one of those, their fun car might be a GTI that just doesn't get driven every single day, and it doesn't get driven at all in the winter. It all depends on where your line is. For me, I think the GTI is a fantastic line between performance, economy, utility, and reliability. Some of you might not agree, but I don't guess I care. All right, let me know if you have any questions, and I'm always happy to answer, and I don't mind a little bit of sparring with the enthusiasts of the imports or the haters of the European cars. Everybody's welcome here. Just kind of be respectful. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I'll check in with you at the 9-year mark. Take care.